Hi brothers and sisters, we're back here for just a quick video for 8th day dawning. I'm going to show you the passage where I found the two suns in the sky, not in the sky but very close to it. So I'll read you the verse first here, and it is Jeremiah 15:9, and then I'll show you my rendering, what I got out of it. So Jeremiah 15:9 says, "The mother of seven will grow faint and breathe her last. Her sun will set while it is still day. Her sun will set while it is still day. She will be disgraced and humiliated, and I will put the survivors to the sword before their enemies, declares the Lord." So what are we looking at when we say her sun will set while it is still day? This is the picture I drew. So it's not a great picture, I'm not an artist, but this is the picture I drew. Her sun will set while it is still day. Now, we know that when the daughters of Israel, who is the real light of the world, and her sun is promised to be a ruby sun. That's what you get in the words. And that's found, see, I'll just leave that picture there. But it says, her sun will set while it is still day. So we're seeing two suns there, right? And the reason why I bring that up is for the obvious reason. We see a lot of talk about two suns being in our sky. Now, I myself haven't really witnessed this. I'd love to be able to. I'm often out. I don't have a great view because I'm so surrounded by so many tall trees that I don't get a good view of the sky unless I go out the front of my house, and then I can really see the sky pretty good. But I don't do that a lot. I don't get the time to do that a lot. But in Isaiah 54, we know her son, I believe it's Isaiah 54. Let me double check this. And we've talked about the barren woman bearing 7 daughters, because the one who bore many sons just languishes. And that's what we're doing in this world. And the reason because of that is because of, if you go in, you want to further your understanding, because I'm pretty much done making videos, go read chapter 6 of Jeremiah, and you will understand, and you've got to play around with your gender there, because though Israel is she, a female nation, it's really regarding the sons and what they did to the covenant of the daughters of Israel. Again, you also got to understand there was 2 groups of women inside of the nation of Israel. This set-apart group, they were known as the daughters of wisdom, or a congregation of wisdom. Also witnesses that you're going to find translated in Jeremiah 9, this congregation, what you must witness to. So this congregation has promised to be reborn out of the dust of the earth. They didn't violate the covenant. It was actually the children within inside of the nation. First the males, who received the harlot surrounding the nation of Israel in covenant and rejecting the covenant with their own women, and then the women who turned away from the covenant as well and began to build up man as God. And then you get this passage right here in Jeremiah 7:19, and it is wisdom speaking, because in Jeremiah 6, when you go read it all, you'll find the same language is used in Proverbs 1 when wisdom begins to speak to her children, and she says, you couldn't be bothered to listen to me. And in Jeremiah 7 verse 19, you'll get this, "But am I the one they are provoking?" she says, declares the Lord. "Is it not themselves they spite to their own shame?" So the mothers of wisdom were there in part to protect the daughters from a deep shame of turning to husband and bowing to him as if he was Lord and God and coming under their law system. And really what it comes down to is idolatry. They begin to idolize an image of hubby, bridegroom, man as Lord and God, which then turns into idolatry. You're filling his bed every night into what he calls the marriage covenant, and it is not the covenant of God, I can tell you that. So they despite these mothers of wisdom, first the sons, then the daughters, to their own shame. And when you go in and you read Jeremiah 6, you begin to understand who she's really personally addressing, and it is the daughters that she's addressing inside of Israel, in a larger part where they're oppressed, and they begin to wear these heavy yokes upon their necks. Now, we've discussed that. But here we clearly see 2 sons. That's what we're seeing. Sorry, I'll get there. There we go. Because that's how it's rendered when you draw out what you're reading. All right? And was there anything else I wanted to add to that? And we see the Shulamite saying, look not upon me because I am black. Okay, so we were looking for the red sun. That's where I was going. So sing, barren woman, you who never bore a child. Burst into song, shout for joy, you who never in labor. Because more are the children of the desolate woman than of she who has a husband. Well, it's the harlot. Baal, right? Baal married himself. Someone who would teach his lies and religious law system as if it come from God. And then we see these daughters once again reborn out of the dust of the earth. In Psalm 50, I believe, and she says, you thought I was just like you. You thought I was a man. You thought I thought like you. Well, I don't think like you. Right? And that comes back to, despiting her words, in spite of the fact that it brought great shame upon the daughters, to, reinforce all of his husband's lies. That God is male, 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 and she's this and she's that, and it's to her own debasement. And they will not listen to what wisdom has to say. So if you go in, again, and you read Jeremiah 6, and you read Proverbs 1, you begin to understand it is our mother wisdom that is speaking to us. So if I pull up Isaiah 54, it may not be this chapter, it may be Isaiah 28 that I'm looking for. But let's go down and we will see. I believe it is. It's Isaiah. Yeah, it's Isaiah 28. No. Yeah, it's verse 12 here. And I will make your, it says thy windows of gates. Or, another rendering, moreover, I will make your battlements of ruby. So if you go in here, we know that battlement is your argument. It's also another word for your high tower, your strong tower that you will run into for protection. It's also, like I said, another word for your argument. But if you look the word up here, battlements, it also has the idea of pinnacles. And God says, I'll make your pinnacle, your battlement, your fortification, your what? If we look that word up that they're saying, 8121, sun, daylight of ruby. That's why I put this one down here. Ignore my crappy drawing up top. The red sun down to the bottom. Right? Yeah. Battlements, daylight, east side, sun, sunrise, sunset, west. So they denied her covenant is what they did. And the denial of that looks just like the worship of a male god. Because he wanted to be exalted. And it came at the debasement of the divine feminine. Especially these women called the congregation in Jeremiah chapter 6. So you know what? Let's just go take a quick look at some of it. And then I'm going to leave. I didn't want this to be a very long video. And like I said, it clearly does indicate in that one little verse. And if you look at it correctly, there was 2 suns in our sky. One, the false light that turns the Shulamite black. It's allegorical to the false light, the false doctrine that shone upon us and led us astray. And then her light went down. They didn't see it because they rejected her covenant. So, let me see here. Where do we want to start? I have likened the daughter of Zion. This is the nation of Israel, or the south side, I guess, to a delicate woman. The shepherds with their flock shall come upon her. They shall pitch their tents round about her, and they shall feed every one in his place. Set them apart for war against her. Rise up, let's attack at noon. So we've got light going here. And then I think they say to themselves, woe to us, for the day is passing. The evening shadows are growing long. Rise up, let's attack by night. Let us destroy her fortress, her palaces, it says. For this is what the Lord of hosts said, cut down the trees, raise a siege ramp against Jerusalem. This city must be punished. There is nothing but oppression within her, it says. Well, it's a her because Israel is allegorical to a heifer, because it was the wise women of Israel who ruled it with their wise words. And we see them meeting in the house in the forest of Lebanon. And there are also this set-apart group of women who are wise, who are older, also meeting in Psalm 68, also called, what was I going to say? Your set-apart ones, your holy ones, and your wise ones who met on the North Mountain, okay? So, I can't remember, I lost my train of thought there. So, and that's in Proverbs. Wisdom says you wouldn't listen to me. So, she's called a female nation, Israel is. Because we have female and male nations on planet Earth. And Israel was a female nation, identified as a heifer in allegorical terminology. And she was burned to ashes. And it was representing these righteous daughters of Israel burned to ashes. It's also promised that they will be reborn out of the dust of the earth. So we get the ashes here. And it says, for this is what the Lord of hosts says, cut down the trees, raise a siege ramp against Jerusalem. The city must be punished. There is nothing but oppression within her. So the males were beginning to oppress with a religious lie in law. Be warned, Jerusalem, or I will turn away from you. I will make you a desolation, a land without inhabitant. This is what the Lord of hosts says. Glean the remnant of Israel as thoroughly as a vine. Pass your hand once more like a grape. Gatherer over the branches. So what we saw in the wanderings was that the true daughters of wisdom were cast off. They did not want these women in covenant or their word or their law, and they get cast out into the lands of the Gentiles. And that's in keeping with the promise, of course, that our mother wisdom, called the Lord here, who is angry with the sons and daughters of Israel who were turning away from this set-apart group called the congregation. They're also in this chapter identified as the witness in the earth. That's right, reborn out of the dust. So if you get reading this, you're going to realize, number one, you've got to get your gender correct. Number two, you've got to realize that there was two separate groups inside of Israel. Mainly the women, the daughters, the mothers, yes. Then the sons, the fathers, yes. And then this set-apart group known as the congregation, which was identified as wise women in many passages. So here in 6 they say, they have treated my people's brokenness superficially, or the daughter of my people slightly, claiming peace, peace, when there is no peace, right? So she was really angry overall for the treatment of what they were doing to her holy ones, which was this congregation set apart to guide the nation of Israel. And in fact, the men was turning away from their word, and eventually over time we see the daughters turning away from this as well. But she says, you have not healed the hurt of the daughter of my people. You say peace, peace, when there really is no peace. Were they ashamed when they acted so abhorrently? No. And they still aren't even yet today. And the women are no different. They are Baal. It says Baal married Baal. Isaiah 54:1. Go look the word up for the married woman there. It's Baal. He married himself his own doctrine. And these daughters, when they are reborn, begin to speak as a witness in the earth. And in Isaiah 50, in this, this spirit speaks in Isaiah 50, and she says, you thought I was a man just like you. You thought I thought just like you. There's a sick perversion in the land right now. And it stems from idolatry, right? And that idolatry has the idea of bowing to an idol. And that idol is shown in Daniel 2 and 3 as a male idol, which then becomes Jesus, your husband, your bridegroom, standing as your Lord and Master and Creator of all things. This idolatry then turns into idolatry. A lying covenant in the land that puts a woman in a man's bed every night telling her that she has no right to say no to her husband. This was not the covenant of God. It was not. So idolatry turns into idolatry is what happens over time. And they fail to understand their true sin in the land, is what it says. In, I wrote it, I believe, under my last video on Ruth Abbey. So it says, from the least to the greatest of them, everyone is making profit dishonestly. From prophet to priest, everyone deals falsely. So we're seeing it from prophet to priest. So again, she's got the men in view at this point. They're making money. They're taking her rights. They're dealing falsely with my daughters. They're saying that nothing belongs to them. It's all theirs. And that you're coming under them. And the only way to have anything is to be married to a man and in his bed. And I know I've heard it taught from the pulpit myself that a woman has no right to say no to her husband. So, this idolatry turns into idolatry. That's right. So that's why we see the two sons, right? She, her truth, her light, her son, got replaced by a false light. And we see the Shulamite saying that in Song of Songs. Chapter 1, look not upon me because I am black, because the sun has looked upon me. My mother's sons were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyard of my children, of his children. By teaching his law, they become his fathers. And removes her hosts from her children. That's what it did. Now, if we go down here just a little bit more, I'm done. It says, also I set watchmen over you, saying, hearken to the sound of the trumpet. But they say, we will not hearken. So she sends her daughters to trumpet, and she has 7 of them. She does. It says the 7, the one who bore 7, it's daughters. We know that. We've looked at that. So were they ashamed? Excuse me. When they had committed abominations? Nay, they were not ashamed, neither could they blush. Therefore, they shall fall among them that fall at the time. So at that time that I visit them, they shall be cast down, saith the Lord. So anybody who don't get the truth, right? And we know it says over and over in the Bible, it says this world cannot receive the spirit of truth. It rejected her. And that's why we see her son going down, her true light. Isaiah 49, she's identified as the light of the world. So in 16, thus saith the Lord, stand ye in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths. Go look for them. The old paths are the original path. They are the original covenant. You go look in Malachi chapter 2. Yet is she the wife of thy youth, whom you rejected. She's also identified as the original spirit of the covenant, who the men rejected and married the daughter of a strange god. A harlot, Babylon, that would build man up and this beast system. That's right, because they're quite beastly interactions towards the women of this world. That's why it becomes considered an oppressive and violent system, because it's also known as the beast system. So at that time I will visit them, they shall be cast down. Thus saith the Lord. Thus saith the Lord, stand in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths. Where is the good way, and walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your soul. But they said, we will not walk therein. Yet we got that going on. We got the trumpet sounding. We do. Through daughters like myself. And they're not listening. They don't want to hear it. To their own debasement, according to that passage we just read. Now watch what it says here. It says, also I set watchmen over you, saying, hearken to the sound of the trumpet. But they said, we will not hearken. Therefore hear ye nations, and know, who's this? O congregation, what is among them? Right? So we got this congregation again coming in. Look, the word, it's feminine. I already did this. We'll do it here. I did it for myself, so I'd know. Congregation, 5712. Noun, feminine. Congregation, a band, a company, an assembly, a herd, a swarm. Yeah, that's right. So here we have this set-apart group, reborn out of the dust of the earth, teaching the true covenant. They're trumpeting it, and they don't care about what this lying covenant does to them, right? They don't care that it's even to their own debasement. And it's not, she says, it's not me you're spiting, it's yourself you're spiting. You're hurting yourself by not listening to wisdom. And like I said, go read Jeremiah 6 and look at the language in Proverbs 1, and you will come to understand. It is her voice through these mothers that you reject it, through these mothers of wisdom. Now, they're also referred to here as the witnesses in the earth. Therefore, hear you nations, you who are witnesses, observe what will happen to them. I don't like that rendering because it sounds muddled. Therefore, O nations, and know, O congregation, what will happen to them. Hear, O earth, I am bringing disaster on this people, the fruit of their own schemes, because they have paid no attention to my word and have rejected my instructions. So where did we find that? Where did we find that? What use to me is frankincense from Sheba, or sweet cane from a distant land? Your burnt offerings are not acceptable, and your sacrifices do not please me. Because this was not her way. This is the way of the liars that came out of Egypt with the lie of the golden calf idol on their tongue, right? Which again goes from a calf to a man standing, which then becomes your husband, bridegroom, Lord and master over everything, standing. And she says, hear you earth, I am bringing disaster on this people, the fruit of their schemes, because they have not listened to my words and have rejected my law. You rejected the gently flowing waters of Shiloah, and then tried to pretend like this is God's way, what you've got. This is a lie in the land. Let's go to Proverbs 1. It's right there, actually. It's one of the passages here it'll give you. But we'll open up Proverbs 1 completely, and then I'm going to go. Because the same language used in Jeremiah 6 is the same language in Proverbs 1, and we're told it's Mother Wisdom speaking here. To know wisdom and instruction, and to perceive the words of understanding. To receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, and judgment, and equity. To give subtlety to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion, and woman. So, what does she say? We'll go down here to where she says, you didn't listen to me when I called. Let me see here. I don't want to miss it. She says, walk in my paths. For their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed blood. And they did. It was about building men up in the land as gods on this earth. And they took control of it from her and her daughters of wisdom, who she had set apart, to protect the children, basically from their own spite that would come upon them. But they weren't wise enough to know that and see that when these mothers were. They were wise enough to see that. Let me see here. Wisdom crieth without, she uttereth her voice in the streets. She crieth in the chief places of concourse, and in the openings of the gates in the city she uttereth her word, saying, how long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity, and the scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge? Turn you at my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you. I will make known my words unto you. Because I have called, and you have refused, I have stretched out my hand, and no man regarded. Is that not what she just said here? In, what passage was it? Where was it? Jeremiah 6? Of course, it's gone now. But she says, you refused my words. I was in verse what? Sorry about this. Verse 19. Listen, earth, I am about to bring disaster on these people, the fruit of their own plotting. For they have paid no attention to my word. They have rejected my instruction. You see? They rejected wisdom's instructions, which came by the mothers of wisdom that she had pulled out of the nation of Israel for herself. How long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity, and the scorners delight in their scornings, and fools hate knowledge? Turn you at my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you. I will make known my words unto you. But because I have called, and ye have refused, I have stretched out my hand, and no man regarded. But ye have said it not all my counsel, and would none of my reproof. I will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. So this is all again in Jeremiah 6, when she says to him, you turned away from the congregation of God, which was manifested as the wise women. And if you read Wisdom, Proverbs 1, Proverbs 9, Psalm 2, and you go to, there was another passage there, Jeremiah 6, 8, 9, you're going to find out who they were casting down, who they were rejecting. And it was the daughters of wisdom set out as this congregation to protect the nation of Israel. And here we see them rejecting at the very end. She says, oh, that you were wise and you would know your end. But you can't be bothered to know your end. You're so sure that you've got it figured out when you've got it so screwed up. Let me see if I can read it. I believe it's in Deuteronomy now that I think about it. Let me see. Right here. What does it say? Yeah, it's under my last video. They sacrificed to false gods, which are not gods, gods they had not known. So it's in Deuteronomy 32. You forgot the God who gave you birth. You rejected them because she was angered by her sons and her daughters. And I will hide my face from them and see what their end will be. For they are a perverse generation, children who are unfaithful. They made me jealous by what is no God, and angered me with their worthless, that's Belial. Another name for worthless is Belial. It means worthless sons. Your worthless idol of a man standing as your Lord and God. You made her angry, wisdom. You did. Because you rejected what could have protected you, and you're still doing it. And what else does she say? But she says, I'll make them angry by a nation that has no understanding. For a fire will be kindled by my wrath, one that burns down to the realm of the dead below. It will devour the earth and its harvest. You see, that's the children. And set afire the foundations of the mountains. The lawyers that climb to the top are regarded as he-goats, devils, satyrs is the word I believe gave for he-goat, and your devils who climbed to the top and took control of this mountain. But she says, I'm going to beat this mountain small, and I'm going to blow it away in the wind. I'm going to bring forth my own capstone, which again you find in Daniel chapter 2, cut out without hands, which smashes the toes on the false image of a man standing as your Lord and God, husband, bridegroom. And then this mountain, this stone that's cut out without hands, which is the daughters of Israel, this congregation reborn out of the dust of the earth, grows into a mountain herself. And then you find that capstone, that mountain called Mount Zion, grown into the capstone in Zechariah chapter 4. So, and I will heap calamities on them, and I'll spend my arrows, my words against them. Verse 29. If only they were wise, they would figure it out. They would understand their fate. Verse 32. For their vine is from the vine of Sodom, and from the fields of, it says Gomorrah, but we know the witnesses die in Sodom and Egypt. So we know the contamination come out of Egypt, which is worship of the golden calf, which is worship of Baal, who is Baal your husband standing as your God. Their grapes are poisonous and their clusters are bitter. Their wine, when you look it up, most add mixture of blood and water, is serpent's venom. They dripped blood into her pure water. The deadly poison of cobras, verse 35, vengeance belongs to me. When she says me, she's talking about her holy ones, this congregation set apart, these daughters of Israel, which is called God, or the presence of God on earth. I will repay, and in time, or at that time, their foot will slip, for their day of disaster is near, and their doom is coming quickly. The Lord will indeed vindicate her people and have compassion on her servants when she sees that their strength is gone and no one is left, slave or free. She will say, where are their gods, the rock they found refuge in? Who ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offerings? Let them rise up and help you. Let it be a shelter for you. See now that I am alone. There is no God but me. I bring death and I give life. I wound and I heal. No one can rescue anyone from my hand. So in Proverbs 1, wisdom speaks and then tells us she will laugh at us in the day of our calamity because we would not listen to her words. And in Proverbs 1 leads you to Psalm 2, much like if you read Jeremiah 6, it also factors into the whole context for anybody who's willing to read and understand. And so I'll just tag this little bit here on the end. Isaiah 46:9. Remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is none else. I am God, and there is none like me. So Isaiah 46:3 will give you their rendering, then we'll give you the proper rendering. Isaiah 46:3, hearken unto me, O house of Jacob, and all the remnant of the house of Israel, which are born, carried by me from the belly, which are carried from the womb, and even to your old age I am he, it says, and even to my hoar hairs will I carry you. I have made, and I will bear, even I will carry, and I will deliver you. That's Daddy. Is it Daddy? Or is it that fools love foolishness and couldn't be bothered to listen to wisdom, the trumpet sounding? Isaiah 46, verse 4, again, proper rendering, or 3. How come it's 4 there? And even to your old age I am she. And even to hoar hairs will I carry you. I have made, I will bear, even I will carry and will deliver you. You see, that's why you have wisdom here, reborn of the dust of the earth. She's wise enough to teach, and that's what she's doing. That's what many of these daughters are in place to do. Reason the truth out. Make sense. Wisdom. Fools love foolishness. They can't be bothered to listen. Oh, but if they just knew their latter end, she says. There we go with the 2 sons. Anyway, that's the video. Thanks for watching. Longer than what I intended it to be. I pray the Lord blesses you in abundance of pure water. This water that gives life. The shepherds failed to water the garden. They fed themselves all they wanted and more. And they became known as thieves. They are violent. They're oppressive. They think of no one but themselves. That's not love. And neither is this covenant that you call a covenant from God. It's not love. It's all about building man up. Even to your own spite, you'll do it. That's what she says. That's what wisdom says. That's why you have these daughters of wisdom come back. But there's coming a time when she says, I'm going to cut that burden away from them, and they won't have to do it. They won't have to deliver you. The harvest has come to the full, and she's going to deal with it. She is. I think she's dealing with it now. So thanks for watching. Again, I hope you're blessed with an abundance of this pure water. And I hope you all have a really nice day. And thanks again.